My first question for you is why you two particularly chose this field of physics and kind of all the progress that had been made before you started working on your project.
I sort of look back, and it's very hard to point to anything that was really you know, changed my life. I see all of these different things that kind of come together, different experiences accumulate.
I think even if it's not that you had a particular teacher who taught you this one fact that, caused your brain to turn on, I think sort of the accumulated experiences of seeing people who are doing science, teaching science, enjoying mathy, engineering, technical kind of things, enjoying them in an unembarrassed way, gives you a role model sort of picture that, yeah, this is something I could do. This is a life I could have.
It's sort of strangely enough, but I chose this general field of atoms and lasers back when I was an undergraduate, and I had to work in a research lab. They'd invented this new kind of lasers that you could tune them around, and that seemed like really a neat thing to do with atoms, and it was sort of a completely new capability. So I sort of followed the technology, and it led then through lots of different sorts of experiments over many years. And then at one point I got a chance to hire this brilliant postdoc to come work with me from MIT, and so that's how it came.
I was just looking for a new project. I had finished my PhD and doing something kind of different, and I was looking for something new and exciting, and the hottest thing in those days was laser cooling. So I thought, oh, I should get involved in that. And Carl had recently had some breakthrough results, and I said, well, maybe I could learn from the master. So,
by laser cooling, that's when you think, gas of atoms are flying around, and you shine light on them from a laser, and if it's exactly the right color, then the lasers are coming from all different directions, then the atoms will actually slow down. It's kind of a strange result, but you could get atoms really cold that way in a pretty simple way.
So, I had like a rural childhood and like an upbringing where I couldn't really go into much except like farming was expected. How do you think like your childhood affected you? Was it like harder or easier when you grew up?
he had a rural childhood too.
This is a good contrast that you can get to the same place for very different routes. We had totally different childhoods. Yeah,
City kid, country boy.
City kid, parents, university professors, and whereas I grew up in the woods of Oregon and father who cut down trees, and I think both environments can actually support different things. I mean, I didn't get such great, traditional learning, but I learned to build things, and figure out how to make stuff, because you're out, an hour from the nearest town. You got to figure out how to make things work, and so I'm pretty good at figuring out how to build stuff and make it work. Eric's really good at thinking about how to calculate things and making sense of the formal physics. So.
Carl used to joke that I was born with a silver slide rule in my pocket, and there's something to that. I come from sort of a family of sciencey, mathy people, and but by the time you're out of high school, those differences kind of fade.
Yeah. And it is important, though, to recognize that, I mean, it takes a while for them to fade, but it's really kind of your approach to life and learning that over time kind of trumps whatever the early stuff was. And so, there's an important aspect of remembering that kind of persistence and attention to learning matters a lot over the long run. It's not kind of what you're born with.
Science is a great life. I think you'll find you get to, scientists as a rule travel a lot. It's a very social activity. This idea of the lone wolf scientist hiding out in his or her lair and never talking to anybody basically hasn't been true. If it was ever true, it hasn't been true for centuries. We spend all our time hanging out with our science friends, traveling around, discovering new things, having a deeper understanding of how the world works. It kind of makes you feel like you have a behind the scene sense of how the world actually works because you're studying science and doing science research. It's been a good life, and I think that one that's available to young people today and something you should consider pursuing.
Yeah, and the year I graduated from high school, I lived way out in the woods where lumber was a big deal. I spent the summer stacking lumbers that came out of the sawmill, and and every time I think things are hard, I think back to that. That was what real work's like. Boy, this is nothing like real work. You come in and you putter around the lab and think good thoughts. Go out and have a cup of coffee with your buddies and talk, and that's actually you get paid for doing that, as long as the talk turns into good ideas. So,
Which it sometimes does.
yeah.